Hey guys, Ryan from Weekend Warrior Outdoors here again. Welcome to part 3 of So You Want to Be an Elk Hunter. Today we're going to talk about elk movements. In part 1 we talked about drawing a tag. Part 2 we talked about some of the differences with the rules and regulations out west. Today I want to talk about elk movements. And the reason I put this sooner rather than later in the series is I think elk movements are going to dictate a lot of where you hunt, where you scout, the type of units that you apply for. All of that is going to come into effect when you consider how elk move, not only during the day, you know, night to morning, morning to midday, midday to evening, but also season to season. All of these are incredibly important to think about as you prepare for your elk hunt, and it can have huge effects on whether you're successful or not, just knowing some basics about elk habits. So what I want to talk about, not a lot of notes on this one, but first off I want to talk about seasonal movements. I'm going to do some drawing here for you. I'm not an artist, so I apologize in advance, but maybe this will help. So seasonal movements, you know, these elk are going to act different whether it's summer, fall, winter. No different than a whitetail or a mule deer or an antelope or anything else. They're all going to act a little different at different times of the year, right? What you're generally going to find with elk, let's just kind of draw a scenario here. So let's say, you know, here's a valley. Let's say it's kind of a river valley, so we got a river in there. Then we've got like kind of some sagebrush country here. Maybe we can go a little different. Maybe that sagebrush country kind of feeds into the aspens here. Let's call that aspen country. And then, you know, we get into the dark timber. Generally, it's kind of the trend. And then you get out of the dark timber, and you're going to break out into the above timberline country in general. Let's start with summer to fall. In the summer, you can find elk anywhere from the aspens all the way to the high country, but I find your biggest concentrations of elk are going to be in this dark timber to above timberline country. The other thing that you're going to find is your bulls are going to be bachelor herded up, and your cows are going to be off with spikes and maybe some raghorns and their calves. During the middle of summer, you can find giant herds. You know, I've been above timberline hiking into lakes, fishing and stuff, and I've seen herds of, you know, 1, 2, 3, 400 elk in the summertime. And those are generally your cow-calf groups. They'll have a little nursery. It's kind of cool. The calves will be off on one side. Your bulls are going to be hanging out together in a completely different group. And most of the time, they're going to be above timberline. You can find them in these areas, but so this comes into play with your early season hunts. You know, if you've got hunts, say pre-September 10th, maybe even August, good things to keep in mind. Your bulls are generally going to be separated out from your cows. You're still going to find them in bachelor herds. Come that mid to late August, the bulls are going to start breaking the velvet off of their antlers. And they're going to kind of start feeling ruddy. They're going to get a little irritated with each other. And generally, those bulls are going to come down out of the high country, come to right at timberline or just into the dark timber, and start seeking out the cows. Once that rut hits, once the first cow goes into estrus, you're going to find elk from the aspens all the way to the high country. The bulls are going to be roaming. They're going to be looking for those cows in estrus. Once you hit about that September 10th-ish mark, depending on weather and moon phase and that kind of stuff, the bigger bulls are going to move in. They're going to start rounding up their cows. They're going to start putting up with raghorns less and less and less. During this time, during the rut, I'm hunting almost exclusively in this aspen to dark timber zone. I love hunting elk in the trees when they're bugling. It's just easier to sneak in on them. That's a great place to look for them during the rut. Post-rut, and I'm talking like end of September, or I'm sorry, not September, end of October, slowly going to start making our way down. End of October into early November, you're going to find very few elk above timberline unless it hasn't snowed. You know, once you get that first big snow, like a foot, you know, a good dump. 2 or 3 inches aren't going to affect elk much. You get a good foot, 2 feet of snow in the high country, it's going to start pushing them down. And as you get later into November, mid-November, Thanksgiving, you're going to start seeing elk peeking out into this sagebrush country You know, come mid-December, lots of snow on the ground, it's cold. Your elk are almost entirely going to be, you know, aspen sagebrush country. Maybe even only halfway into the aspen country. They're going to spend most of their winter low aspen sagebrush river valleys, spend all winter there. And then in the springtime when things start greening up, they're kind of just going to follow the snow line back up into the mountains until they get into their summer routine. So all of that being said, now let's talk about day-to-day movements. Again, let's kind of draw a little scenario here. Let me think. Okay, I'm thinking about an elk I killed a few years ago. So you've got, let's say you got a river or a creek valley, some kind of water source, generally in the bottom of a valley. You're going to come up, let's say there's a little hill, and then another little hill, and another little hill. Let's say this hill is kind of steep, not a lot of good, not necessarily flat, but just good places to lay under pine trees. Maybe there's some aspens. What these elk are going to do is evening time, you know, a couple, 3 hours before evening, they're going to start getting up. They're always, not always, a good rule of thumb, elk are going to bed on the north side of the mountain in dark timber. So let's say we've got good dark timber over here. This is a north-facing slope, so the sun is over here. Sun is shining that way, so we're on the shady side of the mountain. We've got really good dark timber. Our elk are going to be bedding right here, let's say. Let's say this distance is anywhere from a half mile to 3 miles. I know it's crazy, but elk moving 3 miles in a day is not uncommon at all. Trust me, they do it a lot. They're going to get up in the evening time, they're going to start milling around. Maybe this is kind of a grassy knob right here. Maybe they hit this grassy knob towards evening time. You know, it's a great place to camp out if you're a rifle hunter, and hopefully they come out into the open before dark. They're going to hit this big open spot right about dark. Then in dark, they're going to go ahead and make their way down the hill, get their drink of water. Depending on pressure, a lot of times you can catch them coming out of this river valley very, very, very first thing in the morning. I mean, like first thing in the morning. If you're lucky, you'll catch them in the valley like that. And then they're going to start working their way back up. And they're going to hit their feeding spot. I mean, sometimes they're at the feeding spot at sunup, you know, but don't be afraid to hang out in that spot for an hour or two. Generally, they're going to be back into their dark timber embedded on the north-facing slope, you know, 2 to 3 hours after sunup, just depending again on weather and moon phase, that kind of thing. Something I want to talk about with this is wind currents and how it affects this. Wind isn't, it's just different in the mountains. Let's say you just got a big valley. We're going to make this real simple. There's a creek in the bottom, you've got peaks on both sides. Generally, and I mean unless there's a storm front coming in or something, generally early in the morning when it's cold, your wind is blowing downhill. As the day starts to warm up, mid-morning, this air starts getting warm, it's going to start to rise. Mid-morning your wind is going to shift and now it's blowing uphill or up valley until evening time. Evening time it's going to start to cool again, and there, hour or two before dark, the thermals are going to switch and now the wind's going to start blowing downhill again. Why is this important? Well, let's say you're chasing these elk, you know they're coming out of the river bottom, you think they're hitting here about daylight, they're coming down and they're bedding over here. If you're right here waiting for them to come to you in the morning, your wind is blowing straight to them. And I tell you, the nose of an elk is their #1 defense. My uncle used to always say, they can hear you 3 times, they can see you twice, but they'll only smell you once. And boy, is that true. If an elk smells you, game over. And elk aren't like whitetails. It's not like they're going to run a little ways into the woods and stop, and tomorrow they're going to do their pattern again. If elk get bumped, it's nothing for them to jump over a river drainage or a divide or a couple of mountains and, you know, reset up shop. They don't have patterns like whitetails once they get bumped. If you're watching elk come up and down this hill every day and no one's pressured them, they're going to keep coming up and down this hill. But I'm telling you, you bump them one time, they're going to leave. So here again, you're waiting for this elk in the morning, you're waiting for him to come to you, your wind's blowing right to him. So what you might do is say, okay, I think they're hitting here about an hour before dark. my wind's blowing down at that time, so I think these elk are better to hunt in the evening. Or maybe you're standing on this hill over here and you see an elk over here, and it's, you know, let's say it's an hour and a half after sunup. So you've got your elk over here. I am not an artist. We'll just do a little stick figure elk. Let's make him a giant. Why not? If we're hunting elk, they might as well be big. You're looking across and you say, hey, my wind's blowing downhill. It's blowing right to him because your wind is kind of blowing that way. Well, what's going to happen, you're going to drop down in the valley. You're going to come up this side. Well, your wind's blowing right that direction on this side of the hill. Your wind is actually perfect right now. And if you wait for your wind to flip and start blowing that way as you're standing right here, well, it's flipped and now it's blowing uphill over here too. And you cross and you start coming up to the other side, now your wind's blowing right to that elk. And you can also make a judgment, you know, if you're looking at that elk mid-morning and you've got a good downhill wind, but your sun's starting to peek out, you can feel the warmth coming, you have a pretty good idea that by the time you cross the river bottom and get to that other side, the thermals are going to flip and you're in trouble. So knowing how the wind blows and knowing what the elk are going to do is going to be a tremendous help to you in knowing how to attack these critters. And this general principle is going to apply no matter where you're hunting them or what time of the year, whether it's an early, a rut hunt, or a late hunt. They're going to follow this same kind of general pattern. It's just you might be hunting in the aspens or the sagebrush or the dark timber or even above timberline. So just some good things to think about as you're working through this. Hope you guys are learning a bunch. Next time we're going to talk about scouting, not just putting your boots on the ground scouting, but you know, there's a lot of work you can do on a computer and on apps on your phone before you get out here. Some phone calls that can go a long ways to making your hunt a success before you ever step foot in the unit. So for now, I'm Ryan from Weekend Warrior Outdoors. We'll catch you next time.